Bionicle, Lego's greatest creation. Fight me, I do not care. I do not care, I will die on that hill. And their biggest fumble, spawning a hyper addiction for every kid, even in the same room as the Spectrum. This was aided by some great movies, some wonderful, fantastic web games, and the greatest ongoing toy skit ever. Shout out to Joller Locobolt for making my childhood. I genuinely mean it. I genuinely mean it. Thank you so much. Bionicle was a genuine heavy hitter and was often accredited to saving Lego. And then Lego fumbled. Because of course they did. And after a failed G2 revival, yeah, not surprised. I mean, look how lame these things were. What is that? What is that? They didn't even bother giving them built-in eyes. What is this? Bionicle has sat in limbo ever since. Regardless of this, Bionicle has a vast amount of media to look back upon and enjoy. And this includes today's subject, Bionicle 2003 or Bionicle The Mask of Light tie-in game. One of the only console Bionicle games. Seriously? If I was Lego, I would have been pumping these out like hotcakes. I can't believe they did not capitalize on this more. Bionicle was like, that was the gold rush of the time. Really? My obviously correct business strategies aside, let's hop into it. Development began in October of 2001 under Argonaut Games and EA. As for the Game Boy Advance version, this was undertook by Mobius Games. We won't be talking about that version today. Devs sadly could not get the voice actors from the original movie to voice their game counterparts, instead opting for voiceovers from other actors, Mortal Kombat style. The game was announced in 2003, and at this announcement, they said that they had a total of 13 Toa to be playable. 6 of the regular Toa in their Toa Nuva forms. That was a bold-faced lie. It was also said that you would be able to evolve your Toa into the Toa Nuva forms with an upgrade mechanic. Wow, that was an even bigger lie. This would all lead up to finding the 7th Toa at the end of the game. EA showcased the game at their Camp EA event. IGN quoted the game as Fast and Furious. Family, 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 family. And said that the level of detail and care put into Bionicle was surprising. Apparently, this build required that each level had a certain amount of light stones needed to complete each level, making the game an 8 to 10 hour adventure. Liar! Oh boy, I need that build ASAP. The game's marketing manager, Sarah Marshall, stated that the game was not to be a hack and slash because Bionicle is about being a bit smarter than that. Dude, they literally have swords, like for a reason. They have swords for a reason. I'm not saying that the game shouldn't have had the element-powered combat, but like, come on. Why? Why not? Why? Never mind. The game released to... Whoa. That's rough. The game was mostly criticized for its thin storyline. We'll talk about this later. Its short game time. We'll talk about this later. And the camera. Really? I don't know where this one's coming from, because honestly, I had no problem with it at all. Others praised the game for being a solid platformer and a fun experience for Bionicle fans. The game also performed very poorly in the commercial sector, and along with Argonaut's SWAT Global Strike Team and iNinja dropping to comparable success, the company laid off its workforce and was liquidated in August of 2006. That's really all there was to this game's development and release cycle. And with that, let's jump over to the game itself. This is going to be pretty quick, as the game is maybe like 2 hours. Actually, it's less. It's less than that. It blows through the story at, well, I don't know, the story isn't really the big idea here. It's just a very simple breakdown of the peak original movie, which I actually just gave a rewatch to coincide with this video. And that thing holds up exponentially. The story, again, is an incredibly bare bones version of the movie, which follows the Toa defending the island of Matanui against the surprise return of the Makuta. As you push the forces of Makuta back, you recover some of the Makutan masks. I don't really know what they would be called, sorry. And eventually the Toa upgraded to the Toa Nuva, literally just the first level, I think, maybe the second. And after you play, it's the second. It is the second, I just remembered. Anyway, after playing through a level for each Toa, you get an additional one for Tahu after he decided to start juicing. Then bam! Takua just gets the Mask of Light and faces Makuta. I mean, it's literally just like out of nowhere. Jaller, my goat, doesn't even exist to die in this game. So then obviously you beat Makuta, and then bam! Game over. I think this game definitely would have gained a bit of an advantage from a longer and more set story. Even if it had just simply followed the movie story word for word and nothing else, that would have brought the experience up by a very, very, very large margin. Gameplay is as simple as it gets. You are presented with a parry that converts into ammo, which is a pretty cool mechanic, and is actually pretty fun when you're facing multiple enemies. But other than that, it's literally just press B, press B, press B. Each Toa also has a charge ability, which is like, basically you just are like, I'm about to blow. And you never really use it. I will say that gameplay gets a bit tedious as you just literally press 2 buttons the whole game. But on the flip side, some levels present you with an ability that is unique to the Toa. And there's also these snowboarding / surfing levels in where the game becomes both Tony Hawk and Bionicle. These are often chase missions, fighting an enemy while avoiding obstacles, and they're fun, albeit very easy. Platforming is platforming, I guess. I mean, it's 3D era platforming. There's nothing really too special about it, but I did enjoy it in its simplicity. I think that despite Miss Marshall's comments, the game would have benefited from some hack and slash gameplay, as well as the upgrade mechanic they had wanted to implement. This would have given players multiple ways to play, also adding the benefit of not making gameplay as dry as it can be at times. I really don't have any comments for the gameplay, as it's pretty simple, which is not always a bad thing, but it is a bit too simple in this case. Bionicle is a platformer, third-person shooter, surf and snowboard simulator, which sounds really cool in theory, but it's not packaged quite the best. The first level is the bare bones gameplay. It's literally just, you play as Tahu, press B the whole game. The second level is the first snowboard, surf, rail shooter segment, which is snowboarding, and it's pretty cool. After this, levels meld these two different styles and will swap between the sets of gameplay. And then there's a random minecart mission. On top of this, Galley and Lua levels throw even more mix into the pot, adding even more ways to traverse, including swimming and flying. And honestly, those are pretty fun. The Lua level is pretty peak. The platforming segments in the game are nothing too crazy, but they are fun. I know I've said this multiple times, but it's my video. I think the standout level is definitely the Lua level. It just blends the game's mechanics and different level elements into the best portion of the game. And I really did enjoy that one. I wish that most of the levels followed that formula. Now, these levels are only about 20 minutes or less, which makes them nice and bite-sized, but very, very lackluster when there's only like 6 of them, and not a lot of variety. I do think they were on the right track with the collect stones to progress idea, and I wish that the levels had a few more goals and ideas implemented into the final build, which would have padded out levels to add some much needed length to the game. I also think that they should have worked on making the levels more replayable like other LEGO games. I mean, like, you know, the whole thing on LEGO Star Wars when you have to go back and play as a different character. I unironically love the way this game looks. It just has that feel to it. Maybe it's all the bright colors. Maybe it's the early 2000s platformer look. Maybe it's the Bionicle themselves. Maybe it's all of it mashed together into this amazing stew of art design that was Bionicle. Now, I don't think there's anything groundbreaking in these graphics, as there's a few things in the game that can be stagnant, such as lava, but overall, it's a pretty great treat to look at. The bosses are pretty decent in this game. Standard bosses are reserved for platforming, and a few of the snowboard levels have chase-style bosses or a race. They definitely get a bit more memorable as the game goes on. The first few levels, you fight the Bo-Rock at the end of the level. Both of these levels, the boss fights are cool, but nothing too intuitive. In the later half of the game, you fight a Rikishi and a Jar. You guys are sick. And another where you give him the clown above the bucket treatment at the fair where the guy is yelling. And then finally, you fight the Makuta himself. Of course, being the final boss, this is the most grandiose one. And by far the coolest. I think all of these bosses are pretty decent, if not good. I just think they could have gained some prowess by adding a little bit more difficulty, or having to complete a task before being able to do damage, i.e. other LEGO game style. I think overall this was a pretty fun experience, and I would not say a waste of my time. I think if you enjoy Bionicle like I do, definitely give it a shot. As a game though, this definitely feels like an unfinished project, like the pre-build. The lack of story really does bring the game down, and I really wish there were a few more game mechanics overall. That being said, I'll throw a rating up on the board right now, and this time I think I'm going to break down my numbers a bit more. I think the story is slightly held together because if you've seen the movie, you know what's going on, but other than that, there really isn't a story, but some bullet points held together by a string of levels. I think the gameplay and the platforming in this game is pretty damn fun. I did appreciate the variation between levels, but it is hampered by that continuous gameplay loop. A differentiation and an upgrade system would have made this peak. I just don't find it fun to press the same button every level when there really isn't a different way to press the button, if that makes sense. I think the levels in this game are a bit of a mixed bag. I'm not a fan of how short they are. This also could have been aided by having more levels, like much more, like double it. But I did enjoy the different scenes presented, as well as the fact there is a good amount of mix-up when it comes to the way you progress through them, i.e. flying, swimming, snowboarding, swinging, etc. Graphics, I love how colorful this game is, and regardless of it not being anything super special, I think this game is pretty great to look at, and the specific feeling it gives is very nostalgic. I think these bosses, again, are pretty half and half. I don't have a particularly great attachment to most of the bosses, as they are pretty forgettable, but it does have some standouts. That being said, that was Bionicle. I did enjoy this game for the most part, but it's definitely not a masterpiece. We need our Bionicle magnum opus. We also just need Bionicle back in general. But please make it good this time. Make Bionicle great again! If you guys enjoyed this video and made it to this point, I greatly appreciate it. If you have any suggestions for what you would like to see on the channel, just go ahead and let me know. Again, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening wherever and whenever you are. Later.